Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that remembers a time when 13 wins was enough. Now, not so much. Not so much. You still got to play your butt off in week 18, even if you have 13 wins. And we're going to talk this week about all of the uh, wonderful high stakes games that we have coming up in the last week of the NFL regular season. We're going to talk about those a little later. We'll go through every meaningful scenario that's coming up in week 18, and we'll talk about who we think is going to come out on top of those scenarios. That involves previewing some games. It involves talking about a couple of different, win and loss odds that we think are good or bad. We'll also, take a swing by Fan Corner. It's been a little bit since we recorded, and many things have happened to our teams in the couple weeks since we had an episode. So we appreciate you guys sticking around and coming on back when we have returned for week 18 here. Oh, first, though, we are going to start our episode the same way we start all of our NFL episodes for the regular season. And we're going to just give you a quick snapshot of the winners and losers from week 17. So let's do that real quick, get it out of the way. The winners from week 17 were the Cowboys, the Vikings, Broncos, Texans, Ravens, Seahawks, Browns, Patriots, Jaguars, Dolphins, Bengals, Giants, Eagles, 49ers, and Falcons. Losers were the Commanders, Lions, Chiefs, Chargers, Packers, Panthers, Steelers, Jets, Colts, Bucks, Cardinals, Raiders, Bills, Bears, and Rams. So there you go. If you missed any of the action, that is who won. That is who lost in the week that was. And what a week it was. Week 17. I mean, what else is there to say except um, people locked up they sealed their fate. They locked in their destiny. Some people are limping into the postseason. Some teams are finding their way. What is your guys' prevailing takeaways from week 17, generally speaking?
Uh, that football's not that fun.
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes it'd be like that.
Week 17, what I took away was that we can have games on like any day we want. We just choose not to.
Oh my God. Don't even I couldn't even tell you, like, it was really hard for me to keep straight the fact that all those games happened in the same week of the NFL. Like, it was really,
Mm.
really tough. Tough for me to sort of reconcile that. But I mean, yeah, I agree with you. That's the as many games as we had on different days was crazy.
Christmas morning game killed me.
Yes, we may get to the consequences of the Christmas morning. We are West Coast, Best Coast over here. So Christmas morning game, we may get to the consequences of that a little later. But let's get into the meat of our episode. We have a lot to cover. And first, before we talk about the stakes for week 18 for the teams that are going to be moving forward, let's talk about the teams that we are confirmed are not going to be moving forward. That's our time for our in memoriam segment for teams that have been eliminated from the playoffs in both week 16 and week 17. Since we missed an episode last week, there are a few teams that have been eliminated since the last time we recorded, and we're going to cover them all in our in memoriam segment here. So just as a reminder of how this segment works, we are going to go through, looks like 4 teams today. And for each of them, we are going to give you their cause of death, the reason why they didn't make it to the playoffs this year. And then also something for their fans and for the team to look forward to for next year. Because as we all know, the NFL restarts over at 0-0, come August. So that is always something to look forward to. So we'll give you something for every team to look ahead for. So the first team we're going to talk about in this segment is the Dallas Cowboys, and Drew has notes on the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think the cause of death for the Cowboys is really a lot simpler than for many of the teams that we've talked about so far. Because I think it was trading Micah Parsons right before the season started. I think their season could honestly look a whole lot different had they come to some agreement with him. Obviously, he ended up getting hurt late in the year with the Packers anyways. Who knows what would have happened with that? But um, the Cowboys offense was so good this year. They kept them in games. They won some games that you thought maybe they shouldn't have, and it was all thanks to their offense. And if their defense could have been a little bit better, this could have been a playoff team. And I think having a premier edge rusher like Micah Parsons would have made their defense a little bit better. Um, so I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of things that go into their defense not being up to the standard of a playoff team, but can't help but notice you traded your best player away right before the season started. I think that does a lot both on the field, and I think it could impact the way that defense operated as a whole. To look forward to, though, like I said, the offense looked great. Schottenheimer ended up looking a lot more like a competent head coach than I think many of us gave him credit for before the season. And yeah, this Dak Prescott with an offensive line that we didn't think was going to be that great, coming out here and slinging it around. Javonte Williams having a great year. There's a lot to like. Now, some of these guys are going to be free agents, and you're only going to keep so many. So that's where some of that optimism goes away because Jerry Jones makes the decisions for this team. I don't know how comfortable you feel about that as a Cowboys fan. It just hasn't been, he hasn't been able to get it done in the last, well, I don't know, 30 plus years at this point. But like every year, you can kind of expect the Cowboys to be competitive in this league. It's just a matter of what personnel they're able to get to put them over the top and make them more competitive. In a division that, let's face it, was more open this year than it might be for a while. The Eagles had their turmoil and they kind of won the division easily. Jaden Daniels doesn't have another year injured. Who knows how good the Commanders can be? The Giants, despite the poor record this year, kind of look like they're in a good position moving forward with their young core and their high draft pick and all that. So I don't know. I know I'm trying to be optimistic here. Cowboys always are in it. They're always in the discussion. It's just a matter of what Jerry does.
All right. Farewell to the 2025 Dallas Cowboys. Better luck next year. On to a team now that, they broke our hearts a couple times. So the first was when they started hot and then kind of fell off a little bit. And the second was when they brought back a beloved figure from retirement, and then it didn't end up working out to wins. I'll say it didn't translate to wins. It translated to fun on the field stuff, but it did not necessarily help them win games and make playoffs. Now eliminated the Indianapolis Colts, and Matt has notes on the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say beloved to some. Drew did try and persuade me into besmirching this man's name, but I couldn't bring myself to it. I am a Philip Rivers lover. My first ever NFL poster was a poster of him throwing to Antonio Gates. Um, I adore that man. The cause of death for the Colts, right? I just put it's injuries, plain and simple. The whole thing kind of started to hit a wall when reports came out that Daniel Jones had that like fracture or stress fracture or something broken in his leg, but they were going to let him play through it. And I believe it was about 2 weeks that he played, and you could tell the offense just looked off. It was out of rhythm. They really didn't have their backup to turn to because Anthony Richardson snapped his eye socket with a rubber band. And that kept him out for the season because, of course, it did. So it's just all these things like the weird injuries and kind of just one of those years where you're like, I think for Colts fans, it sucks because it just leaves that bad taste in your mouth. Like you felt like you were so good. You came out and were clearly one of the most dominant teams in football. And, Daniel Jones looks like he had new life and all the things. And then just these little injuries, was it Tre'Davious Ward, or I forget who the cornerback is that plays there now. getting a concussion that's held him out almost like half the season at this point. During pregame warmups, he gets run into by his own teammate who's just running a route. And so it's just, the weird stuff that happened kind of killed them. And what I will say is like, hey man, you guys have a lot to look forward to because when healthy, you guys were the hottest team in football coming out the gate, and Jonathan Taylor does not appear to be slowing down. This year, he threw himself into a few like long-standing record books, especially as far as like touchdowns and scrimmage yards and all this stuff goes. Um, if Daniel Jones comes back healthy, you guys could have that to look forward to. If Anthony Richardson comes back healthy and, maybe has some resurgence, he could potentially be a player for them or could be a great trade piece for them. Your receiver room as a whole, I would put up with almost any other receiver room. They might not have like the big two, like a Chase and Higgins or a Puka and Devontae, but I mean, Alex Pierce is legit. Michael Pittman is legit. Josh Downs is legit. Like they just have playmakers. Tyler Warren was a great draft pick. So a lot to look forward to. I mean, it sucks a ton. This was a team, though, that I think still, even missing playoffs, exceeded a lot of people's preseason expectations. Um, a lot of people assumed that they would be in contention for that last place spot with the Titans just because who would have predicted Daniel Jones becomes what he was, right? One of the most negatively seen or viewed players in the NFL in terms of his effect on a team, and all of a sudden comes to Indianapolis and just looks like a new man. So yeah, Colts, you got a lot to look forward to. In my opinion, you guys are ahead of schedule. If Daniel Jones comes back and looks like himself, you guys are great. And if not, I mean, this team really truly appeared to be a quarterback away. Um, so yeah, Colts, good try this year, but not enough.
Yep, not enough indeed. So goodbye to the 2025 Colts. Next team up is a team that maybe at the early part of the year we thought we'd be talking about a lot sooner in this segment, but a team that caught a little momentum on the second half of the year, and it took them till about week 16 or so to be eliminated, and that's the Miami Dolphins. So Drew, tell us what's up about the Dolphins. Why didn't they make playoffs this year?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of referenced it. They just started too slowly. Beginning of the year was just abysmal for them. The locker room seemed to be crumbling. There was rumors, how many weeks into the season is Mike McDaniel going to last?
Yep.
And I do think that a big part of their lack of success is that Tua Tagovailoa is just not that guy at the quarterback position. He's shown some flashes here and there. He's also had significant injuries over his career. I just don't know how far they're going to be able to go with him at quarterback. But something to look forward to is that they looked a lot better for the second part of the season, to the point where they were able to stay in the hunt section of the playoff picture for quite a while, a lot longer than I think people thought. And they were able to play spoiler a little bit this past weekend, playing the Bucs. So there are parts of this team that you can see working, and I think Mike McDaniel. I think he might have done enough to keep his job. We'll see, obviously, how that goes. And if he does, I do think, I still believe that if he had a better quarterback, he could be a more successful head coach. We've seen him kind of get everything he can out of Tua, and I think he might have reached his limit. But I don't know who that will be for the Dolphins. Like, it's not like they have a super high pick. It's not like really good quarterbacks end up in free agency very often. We'll see what happens, but I do think that Mike McDaniel's getting a shot and seeing if they make a move at quarterback would give me some more hope on this team moving forward. And they need to play better in the big games, and specifically they need to be They need to play better in cold games. However, they need to figure that out. I know, practicing and playing home games down in Miami is probably lovely for a lot of the time, but yeah, figure out how you need to be able to win these cold weather games because that's gonna that's gonna hold you back, especially in the AFC East.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So there you go. There we have the Miami Dolphins 2025 version of you is Dunzo for the year. Goodbye to the Dolphins. And the last team we're going to talk about in this segment is one that maybe we didn't expect to talk about until very much later. But here we find ourselves after a big pile of crap that they laid on, this weekend, or whatever, last week in week 17. The Detroit Lions find themselves eliminated from playoffs, and we have Matt to discuss the downfall of this year's Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I'm not going to come out here and start tooting my own horn, but I did predict in the preseason predictions. Another one of my most fabulous calls was that the Lions and the Bears were going to swap places in the division. Granted, I missed the Lions by a little bit. They're not going to be last. They're going to be third, but they're eliminated from playoffs. They didn't even make playoffs, and the Bears won the division. Love it. Detroit, go yourself. Cause of death for Detroit, I'm going to say, is just injuries aside, because every team deals with injuries, right? I'm going to say that it was just this attitude that they were there's a sense of like entitlement that they had ever since they've become this good team. It just feels like, I don't know. I'll, no, throw that away. I'm not going to be biased. Rams and Detroit have some beef online. It is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's their injuries, right? Their left tackle got injured. Their center retired. On defense, you lose guys like Brian Branch. You lose what's his name, the dirty player, the other safety, Kirby Joseph. You lose some of these guys, and clearly that impacted them a lot. And you lose Taylor Decker, and you decide, instead of swinging Penei Sewell over to left tackle and filling in at right, to just have a backup in at left tackle, which I guess is their prerogative. But a lot of their issues started when that happened. And then and Sam Laporta goes down, and a lot of their offensive issues started kind of branching from that point. This is still a team, though, that had Jared Goff, apparently the better quarterback between him and Stafford. Amon-Ra St. Brown, you still had Jahmyr Gibbs, you still had Jameson Williams, you still had Penei Sewell, you still had Aiden Hutchinson, you still had Jack Campbell. Like, the list goes on. Yes, you guys had injuries, and that will probably be deemed as the cause of death for this team. I think you can also point to maybe a little bit of brain drain, losing both coordinators, especially on the offensive side. You lose Ben Johnson, and that's going to hurt. And Aaron Glenn, I think, is an awesome coordinator. Don't look at the Jets' stats on defense this year. Don't do it. I believe Aaron Glenn is a good defensive coordinator still. But yeah, they just didn't have enough. And it's not like this team was competing in the division last year, right? Last year, there was 3 juggernauts and a pretty decent 4th place team. This year, the Vikings fell off a cliff. The Packers are not a dominant team. I mean, I think right now they're sitting at 9 wins or 10 wins. Like, they are not some team that's just been rolling, and they lost Jordan Love, and they've dealt with their fair share of injuries as well. They lost Micah Parsons. They traded away Kenny Clark to get Micah Parsons. Tucker Kraft goes down. They've had all their injuries at the receiver position. Jordan Love goes down. So, I mean, it goes on and on. At the end of the day, I just feel like they were so confident that they're just going to like run over these teams, because the last 2 years they've been able to just run the ball 40 times a game, and somehow that puts up 40 points a game. And that's just not been the case this year. And teams have figured out that defense as well. I mean, their defense kind of gets cooked up and down the field, and Aiden Hutchinson will get his pressures and his sacks, but if he's not getting those, teams are kind of just scorching him. And so there's a lot of holes on this team that I think were exposed this year. And at the end of the day, I still like Dan Campbell and I still like Jared Goff and I hope the best for them. Uh, but for at least a year, it's a bit refreshing. I know they've had decades of turmoil and terribleness, but man, these past 3 years they've been annoying.
A hard disagree on that, but I will say that they can still get last place. They're tied with the Vikings right now, so if they lose and the Vikings win, they will be the last place team,
I need
and then
9.
they'll have that easy schedule next year.
I need 9.
Yeah. We can all before the games this weekend, we can all just do our best 9 face in the mirror for some luck on that, if we want. Okay, so goodbye to the Detroit Lions for 2025. We'll see you next year. We'll see if you can make it happen then. Okay, so let's move on from the teams that aren't going anywhere to some teams that may also not be going anywhere, but are at least doing it in dramatic fashion, and some teams that are going to be going somewhere. And so let's talk about every meaningful situation for Week 18. That's where we're going to spend most of the rest of our show today. And we're just going to go through each situation, tell you what the stakes are, and then we're going to make some predictions. We're going to talk about X factors if we're talking about a certain game. It's going to involve a lot of different stuff, but we'll just go piece by piece here. And we're going to start with the battle for the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers are playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The stakes for that game that is on Saturday is if the Panthers win that game, they will be NFC South champions and the number 4 seed in the NFC. The Bucs will fall out of the playoff picture altogether. If the Buccaneers win and the Falcons win, the Panthers will also be NFC South champions and the number 4 seed in the NFC playoffs. And the Bucs will fall out of playoffs. If the Buccaneers win and the Falcons lose, the Bucs will then be the NFC South champs and the number 4 seed in the NFC playoff, and the Panthers will be out of playoffs. So those are the stakes. It was a little bit complicated by the Falcons' surprise win on Monday night, but still mostly a winner go home type of game, at least by the energy. So what we want to talk about with this game is some X factors. So that's where we'll frame the discussion, and then we can just kind of talk about the game a little bit off of that. So give some X factors for each team here, and we can start with whoever wants to start.
I mean, I'll jump right in. I think the X factor for this game is going to be Mike Evans versus J.C. Horn. A lot of people love to say the quarterback matchups. No, these guys will actually be going toe to toe with each other every single drive. Mike Evans versus J.C. Horn. This is good on good, and I think a lot of this Bucs offense, it seemed out of sync even the past 2 weeks when they've been fully healthy. And I think a lot of that has been they haven't been able to kind of just rely on Mike Evans like they have in the past. Mike Evans has been a ball hog and he's a machine, right? He's got the longest streak of 1,000 yards for a reason. He needs 700 more this week if he's going to keep the streak. So we'll see. And yeah, I think that's the X factor. I think Mike Evans is probably the best player. Even at this age, I would say he's probably the best player on their offense. And J.C. Horn, I would argue, is the best player on that defense. Derek Brown has an argument as well. Elijah, don't at me. But J.C. Horn is really good. And I think he's not really spoken about because he plays in Carolina and he was injured early in his career. But this is a dude who was drafted very highly, who was talked about as being potentially a massive shutdown corner. And this year he's been that. When he plays and he's on your best receiver, teams struggle to throw at him. And I think it's a huge reason why this defense has been able to lose Brian Burns and lose some of the players that they did. They lost both of their linebackers from last year, and yet their defense is just better. And it's because J.C. Horn is healthy and he's kind of coming to his own. So yeah, I think that's the X factor for me. That's going to be a good matchup there. And as ugly as this could be, I think it'll be a fun game.
Yeah, JC Horn not talked about often. I can attest to that, but talked about often by me on this last Sunday, paired with curse words. Because yes, he is very good, and he was
Hmm.
playing very good ball, very physical ball
Hmm.
against Seattle. He can frustrate your top receiver for sure.
This looked like a much different Buccaneers team earlier in the season. I'm remembering that shootout game against Seattle where the Buccaneers actually won. And then I'm looking at the Buccaneers lose to the Panthers a couple weeks ago and lose to the Dolphins this past weekend, and it's just like, what is going on here? And Baker Mayfield has a lot riding on this game, I think. He's still someone that I like and I believe in, but if they lose this game, and especially if you don't do anything on offense, um, we're wondering, do the Bucks move on from Baker Mayfield, and what's his future in this league? And if Bryce Young, I think win or lose, he's done a lot to get Carolina behind him, and the league respects him a lot more than we did certainly a year ago. Because again, if they lose, they can still somehow make the playoffs because that's how this thing's played out. But yeah, if Bryce Young comes out and has a big game and clearly outduels Baker Mayfield, I mean, I think that'll silence a lot of doubters. And um, do I think that either one of these teams will go very far in the playoffs? No, but I think you'd be a little, seeing the Panthers on your schedule, as Matt and the Rams can attest to.
Yeah, I I hold my comment on that. I guess I don't want to talk mess before the playoffs, but
Okay, talk it.
maybe I don't know that I kind of want, if there's any T, I want to play them, but because I just watched Bryce Young throw for like 56 yards in a whole game against Seattle.
You
And
guys should lose this week and get the fifth seed so you can go play the
li
Panthers in the wild card.
listen, when the Rams lost yesterday, that was top of my head, because now the worst we can be is number 5, and that means we play the if we lose to the Niners, we play whoever comes out of this game, and I'm very much into that idea. Either way. So, but yeah, Bryce Young, I'm looking for him to come back this week from his performance against Seattle, and come with a chip on his shoulder, show that he's better than he showed on Sunday, and hopefully give the Bucks and Baker Mayfield a run for their money. Okay, so anything else on this game generally? Any players you guys want to mention? Anything, any factor you guys want to bring up before we move on to predicting who might win?
No, I mean, I think that this is an interesting. I've seen this on Twitter a bunch, and it's a conversation that happens every, once a decade, it feels like at this point. But I'd be curious to see what your guys' thoughts are. How do you feel about the fact that there's potential that there's going to be a team with a losing record hosting playoff games? There is a big, because I think people look at basketball and they see how they kind of got rid of the divisions. They went to the conference thing, and now it's like the best team hosts every time. Um, but there's some people who are purists and they're like, no, winning your division has to matter. I mean, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are because there's a very real chance that the Buccaneers, who I do believe are still a good team and have just been off, they win this game and all of a sudden they're potentially in the playoffs at 8 and 9, hosting, the Seahawks or the Niners or the Rams who have 13 wins. Like, we're talking about a 5 game difference in record. Like, it is interesting, and we saw this last year with, to a lesser extent, but with the Vikings winning, what was it, 14 games, 15 games, and having to go on the road and then losing. I think it's a very interesting, situation. It's not often we see a losing team win their division. I think the last one was the Commanders, Taylor Heineke's Commanders.
Oh yeah, yeah. The if the Bucks win, then the division winner, no matter who it is going to have a losing record. Correct?
Yes.
They'll both be
Yeah,
eight
that's right.
nine.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I on one hand, I don't like that at all. To me, the best team it should just be like re-rank them for the playoffs, regardless of division. I don't think division should matter as much. I mean, the Bucks or the Panthers having 8 wins and 6 games against, these teams versus the 6 divisional games that the Rams and the Niners and the Seahawks have to play. It's just a totally different beast. That being said, will it matter that much? Like if the Seahawks lose on Sunday or on Saturday and go to Carolina or go to Tampa Bay, I'm still going to take the Seahawks in either matchup. Like,
Well, the
pretty easily.
Seahawks have a lot of experience being the losing record division winner
Yeah.
in the
And they got to
playoffs
host
and
a
having
game, and it
success.
mattered. I think it mattered for sure in that game. I think like the crowd played a factor, and I personally I don't like it. You know, what does it mean changing all that? I don't think it has to be a complete overhaul. I think winning your division just doesn't automatically get you one of those top 4 seeds would be how I would do it. It's winning your
Yeah, I mean,
division gets you a spot, but
but doesn't mean you're hosting.
right, it just gives you the spot based on your record, I think is how I would fix it. But yeah, we'll see if it ends up actually mattering.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I must abstain or, recuse myself from the proceedings here. The most awesome thing of all my sports life happened when the Seahawks made the playoffs and hosted a game with a losing record, and that was in the 17 game season without the extra games. So yeah, I must recuse myself from the proceedings here because that was awesome, and the next Beastquake is on the way. I know it. So those teams that make
From
the
Bucky
postseason.
Irving?
Yeah, the teams that make the postseason and with losing records, you are the next up. At one day you will be. Okay, so let's talk about who wins. So, give me a winner for this matchup, and then also, I guess, give me who you think wins the division, factoring in what you think will happen in the other case.
I'm going Bucks for both. I think they win the game, and I think they'll take the division.
I'm going to take the Panthers winning the game and obviously therefore the division. And it's because the way the Bucks have been trending lately is the main factor, but also it's just I don't want to live in a world where we're going to have to like pay attention to Falcons Saints on Sunday, week 18. Come on, don't give me that. Just let's get it done the easy way and move
I
on. And
watched
also
the entirety of Titans Saints.
let's give a winning record, to a playoff team. That's what I would like most of all.
Yes, most of all that. Well, okay, let's move on now to two teams that definitely will have a winning record by the end of the game on Saturday. This is sort of, by many people's accounts, this weekend's main event. And it is the Saturday primetime night game. It is Seahawks versus 49ers. The stakes of this game, the winner is the NFC West division champion and the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The loser is the number 5 seed, unless it's the Niners that lose and the Rams win, in which case the Niners will be the number 6 seed on the record versus common opponents tiebreaker. So that is the stakes of this game. Big stakes. You have to play an extra game and you have to go on the road almost pretty much the whole time, you would assume, in order to get to the Super Bowl, versus you get to play one less game and host every game you play in. So stakes couldn't be higher. Let's talk about X factors for this game first.
Yeah, X factor I have is Dallas and whether or not you believe in superstition. Um, Many times throughout the season, when it comes to like the big moments, the big games for the Seahawks, Dallas is up in the group chat like, not even watching this one. Like I'm traveling for work, or he's doing some adult shit. Um, and this one matters more than anyone in the past, right? This is the game that matters, and it's against the team that I think the whole NFC West can agree on we hate the most. Um, and so it's one of these games where Dallas, are you going to be watching? Are you going to be wearing a special jersey? Like, what precautions are you taking? Because at this point, I don't know what to think. I think Brock Purdy's a terrible quarterback, and he scored 10 touchdowns in the last two games. So, I don't know what to make of this matchup. In all honesty, it's two really good teams. It's an offensive guru versus a defensive guru. Defense wins championships, but this is the regular season, so who knows? I mean, what do you think? I'd like to hear your thoughts, Dallas.
Sure. Well, my answer to both of your questions is yes. I will be watching, and I will be wearing my it's kind of a rare find, pre-Nike era Earl Thomas jersey that I have. I found it at a Goodwill in Seattle like 2 years ago, and Drew was there when I found it. And so I've had it for at least a couple years, and I've worn it twice this season, both wins, but most significantly, I wore it for the Rams game in week 16 or however long ago that was. And so yes, I will be wearing that jersey again out of precaution. And yeah, look, briefly, what I think about this game, uh, I think that the Seahawks have it's a thing where I think both teams' strengths match up against each other and both teams' weaknesses match up against each other. So it's a little hard to call it because the Niners' weakness is that the pass rush has not been really strong, and it's caused their secondary to have to cover for a really long time, which they haven't been able to do very well. We saw it against the Bears. And the problem with the Seahawks is that their offense has, since week 10, been starting really slow. And also, I believe they've been 28th in points per drive since week 10 in the entire league. And that is not, as we've seen the Niners play the last like month or so, that is not good. If you cannot, you cannot sleepwalk on offense in the first half of this game, or else the Niners will find a way to bury you and put you out of the game. So those are their weaknesses, and they kind of unfortunately are on the same side. And then their strengths, which is the Seahawks defense and the Niners offense, they are on the same side as well. So I think the week 1 game between these two teams, I believe, ended like 17-13 or something. I believe was the final score. And that's because, this is how it played out. The Seahawks defense played really well. They held the Niners offense down. And then the Seahawks had a chance to win the game on the last drive. And unfortunately, in the red zone, Nick Bosa came in and forced a fumble. Now he won't be there on Sunday night. And that's a big deal. But neither will Seattle's starting left tackle, probably. And so does it matter that Nick Bosa is not going to be on the line when Seattle has a backup tackle in? Or I also saw the Seahawks backup left tackle on the injury report as it did not practice today. So will it be a third string left tackle in the game? So wherever Seattle could have a little bit of an advantage, I think, on the offensive side of the ball, there's something that's keeping them from really being able to take advantage, I think. So it's going to be really hard fought. I think it's going to be really tough. Picking a winner for me would be almost impossible here. I think both teams are really ready to go and are going to play really hard. So that's my brief thoughts on it.
I wish that this game was the Sunday night game because I think I know like Steelers Ravens is we'll talk about that next, but like that is also obviously determining a lot. But I think the stakes are higher in this game than any other game this weekend, even though both teams are going to the playoffs, no doubt, because if the 49ers win, this is a home game for them. They never have to go on the road again this year. The Super Bowl is at their stadium, so no matter how far they go, they will be playing at their home stadium. Now, you can make jokes about how their home fans fill out their stadium or whatever. But I do think that matters. And I think for me, the X factors for the 49ers, it's going to be the status of George Kittle and Trent Williams, both of whom are questionable as of now to play on Saturday. And if both of them are out, then I really, despite all the success the 49ers have had over the last, month, basically the whole year in general, like fighting through injuries and everything, I just think that's going to be too much to overcome. I think the Seahawks are too good of a team to not have both of those guys and to be able to still win. But if they both play, I think that's a major factor. Two of their best players on offense. Kittle gives them another weapon to use. Williams, obviously, one of the better tackles in the game. For the Seahawks, I'm going to go boring again. I'm going to say Sam Darnold is the X factor. The biggest knocks against him have been his performance in these big, important games and his performance when he is pressured. And now we'll see how much pressure he gets on Saturday, but it is as big of a game as he's had this year. Now we saw him against the Rams a couple weeks ago. He looked down and out, and they were able to come back and win that game. There was some help from special teams, of course, but in general, he held his own. He kept his poise. He got it done. That overtime drive and everything. So I believe in him, but it's going to be as tough as it gets. So, I'm very curious to see how he plays in this game. And if he plays well, then man, I'm feeling so much better about the Seahawks going into the playoffs because he's going to be their X factor for me from here on out.
Yep, I think that's fair. I think that's fair assessment as well. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how he responds to it all. I mean, he's been, he hasn't really been the same as in the second half of the year as he was the first half of the year, but, he hasn't done enough to lose the Seahawks games yet in the second half of the year. So is it coming or has he gotten past that? We'll see. But let's pick a winner here and let's hear what you guys think about who might come out on top here.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the Hawks here. I'm going Seahawks, not just because go Hawks, but also I do think you guys as a roster are better. And when push comes to shove at the end of a season, when people are hurt, I'm gonna take the team with the defense. Defense can create points. Offense cannot stop another team from scoring. Right? Offense cannot play defense. Defense can play offense. And so I think that matters here. And yeah, I'm gonna go with the Seahawks. And especially just because, man, I don't want San Francisco to get home field. I don't want them to get the bye week. Like, they're getting Fred Warner back in like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't need them to get that extra week of rest. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you guys are the better team. I think you have the better teams. Please win.
I'm going to go with Seattle as well. I just do think, the 49ers deserve to be commended on how well they've played despite all the major injuries that they've suffered this year. But at a certain point, it catches up to you. And great week against the Bears offensively, but we saw what the defense gave up. I just think that the Seahawks are a better team at this point in time. I think it'll be a really good game, like it always is when these two match up in an important game. But I think in the end, the Seahawks will have enough, and I think that the 49ers just don't have enough gas in the tank with all the injuries they've suffered over the course of the season.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's go to the next game, the last game we're going to talk about. The last game where both teams are playing for something here against each other. So this is Ravens versus Steelers, Sunday Night Football. So the stakes. The winner is the AFC North Division champion and the number 4 seed in the AFC playoffs. Loser goes home. So X factors for this game, Steelers versus Ravens.
Yeah, originally my X factor was going to be the quarterbacks because, Lamar has been kind of injured this year. He's been playing after he came out playing really hot. He came back from injury and has not looked himself. And last week I believe Tyler Huntley was starting for them, and then Aaron Rodgers. But I think the bigger thing, and what kind of changed my mind, is realizing that DK Metcalf suspension looms massive, right? They had a chance to put the division away. They were playing the Browns, and it just looked like a team that, without DK Metcalf, decided their whole offensive purpose was to not take a sack by a specific player. And I know that was kind of put out into the media, and Myles Garrett had said that, but I don't know if you guys watched that game. It's how it felt. Like Aaron Rodgers was not attempting to put pressure on that defense in the slightest. Every single play was either a handoff the opposite direction or was the fastest throw you've ever seen of snap throw. Um, it looked bad. And I wonder with this game, DK Metcalf gets suspended for 2 games, this game being the second. No one, their leading receiver was Scotty Miller, if I'm not mistaken. The same Scotty Miller who was like a fifth string receiver for Tom Brady's Buccaneers. And so it's just that's not great. That's not super great. And they have all these tight ends and none of them really, I mean, Freiermuth had one big play, but outside of that, they really didn't do anything. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting, but X factor, I'm going to come down to Steelers pass catchers. I mean, who can step up here? Because the Ravens, they've had a tough year on defense. Talent-wise, are up there with the best of them when it comes to secondary talent. So they're going to need their pass catchers to come ready.
And for me, the X factor, it's going to be on the other side of the ball. It's the Ravens play calling. Are they going to feed Derrick Henry? I think if they do, they will win. But we've seen them not do that and try to get a little Lamar heavy in a year where Lamar doesn't quite look like himself. I would just trust your big man, run the rock, keep feeding him, keep it going, extend the drives, keep Lamar off his feet, as much as you can, and that should be a recipe for success. I completely agree with Matt's assessment about the Steelers side of the ball. I mean, losing to the Browns, it's just at this point of the season with this much riding on it, it is just not a good omen. It's not what a good team does. And honestly, I think there was a lot of AFC teams kind of happy with the way the AFC North looked like it was playing out, with the Steelers just kind of easily winning this division despite not having anything that really strikes fear in you. I think Lamar Jackson in a playoff game, despite their regular season record, is something that might worry you as a opponent. So I I tend to agree. I think the Steelers are in some trouble here.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those where the story of the season uh, will be forgotten for whoever loses. You know what I mean? Like it'll just be another year where, the Ravens underwhelmed and didn't make the playoff or didn't make the Super Bowl with a team that should be good, and or for the Steelers it'll be another year where they were just mid and they couldn't get it done, and it's despite everything that's gone into making that be the case. So big stakes for both teams here. But let's take a winner from this game. So let's talk about who we've got on top here.
Yeah, I've got the Ravens. And for exactly the reasons Drew said. I mean, right now they're the better team roster wise. I still believe in them as a team. They were my Super Bowl pick coming into the season. The talent is all there. It's just been this weird amalgamation of issues this season. But you're exactly right. If Derrick Henry touches the ball 20 times in this game, I like their odds of winning. Plain and simple. He is the ultimate, winter football player of this generation. There's nobody that represents cold weather end of season football better than Derrick Henry. Give him the ball, dude. It really is that simple. So I'll go Ravens. It seems like they kind of understood that last week, and you see what he did. He had what, 3, 4 touchdowns, something like that. I mean, he went off. Just absolutely monstrous game. And I know Ravens fans would love to end the season of the Steelers. Love it.
In the career of one Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Realistically, yeah.
100%. All right. And Drew, who you got?
I also have the Ravens. I mean, I think like many fans and analysts alike have felt like the Ravens are better than the Steelers all year. That doesn't always matter. Like if the Steelers could have just beaten the Browns, could have scored uh one touchdown against the Browns, um, they wouldn't this game wouldn't even matter. They weren't able to do that, and I think that's going to come back to bite them big time. I know it's in Pittsburgh, but um, the Steelers just look lost, and I think the Ravens will smell blood in the water and take advantage and be the better team and win the important game that we've seen them win in recent years. And you know, as far as playoffs goes, we'll see. We'll have to talk about that next week, but I do think the Ravens win this game.
And as far as home field advantage goes, last week we were hearing chants to fire Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
That
Right.
doesn't feel much like a home field advantage.
Right. Right. Yeah. So hopefully, for the Steelers' sake, the terrible towels will be in full force, but will it matter? Who's to say? So we've got the Ravens here. So keep it locked for Sunday Night Football and see what happens. All right. The next two impactful scenarios can be quick because we're not going to be talking about all these games, but we will pick who comes out on top of the situation. So just to lay it out, we're going to talk about the AFC number 1 seed. So we've got Broncos, Patriots, and Jaguars who can all technically get it. The Broncos get it if they win versus the Chargers, or if the Patriots lose versus the Dolphins and the Jaguars lose versus the Titans. So that's for the Broncos to get it. The Patriots get it if they win and the Broncos lose. And the Jaguars get it if they win and the Patriots lose and the Broncos lose. So knowing that, knowing their opponents, keeping in mind that the Chargers are going to rest Justin Herbert going into that game against the Broncos, who is getting the AFC number 1 seed for you guys?
I mean, purely based off of the benching of not benching, but the resting of Justin Herbert, the Broncos feel like they have the easiest game. The Titans obviously have not been great. And yet when they're at their best, they have an offense that can surprise you. And they can put up some sneaky points. The Dolphins have been okay under Quinn Ewers. I mean, they kind of put belt to ass on the Bucks a little bit. And so yeah, I think I mean my initial gut reaction was looking at that Jaguars Titans game and being like, oof, I mean, the Dolphins have been better than I think we realize, and the Chargers are good. But if the Chargers are gonna bend over, then I think the Broncos have to take advantage. Like, if the Broncos let this be a game, that's a bad sign.
Yeah. I do think the Broncos will let this be a game because that's what they do. They don't blow people out. As much as I beg them to. But I do think, yeah, the Broncos will win. They win games that they should win, and a Chargers team without Justin Herbert, and we'll see who else they'll be without. That is a game you need to win. And I think it's kind of a perfect scenario in my head. If we had won the last 2 weeks, then this game wouldn't matter. We would have the 1 seed, and that would be effectively 2 bye weeks in a row. And I think that might be a little bit too much, to rest your guys. So I kind of like that this game matters to us. And it's a perfect scenario that it doesn't matter to the Chargers. Obviously, that them not playing Herbert means they don't care if they win or lose. It's kind of a perfect scenario. But I do think all 3 of these teams trying for the 1 seed will win this weekend, and that just no ground moves. But that's what I expect.
All right, we've got the Broncos taking the number 1 seed, and the last one is the AFC South winner. So the Jaguars or the Texans can get it. So the Jaguars can get it if they win versus the Titans, or if the Texans lose versus the Colts. And the reverse is true for the Texans, except they need to win versus the Colts, and they need the Jaguars to lose versus the Titans. So who is getting the AFC South?
It's the Jags. I'm sorry, they're really good, and I'm not gonna keep pretending like they're this like mystery, like, well, maybe. I mean, you don't win 12 games in the NFL by accident. Like you don't. It's the sign of a good team. It's the sign of a typically a complete team, especially when they don't have a single player dominating anywhere. This is a balanced team that plays together as a team, all three phases. I mean, you got a guy kicking 70-yard field goals. Trevor Lawrence, this is probably the best he's ever looked as a pro. The run game is back in Jacksonville. Jacoby Myers has completely unlocked that passing game for them. And that defense has been good all season, and people haven't really talked about that. But even early on in the season, they were shutting down good teams and good offenses. So, Titans, as I said, they can surprise you, they can sneak up on you. I don't think that Jaguars are going to let that happen. Not with the division on the line, not with hosting playoff games on the line. Um, I do believe the Jaguars will win and finish this season off strong.
Yeah, I think if they were playing each other, I might pick the Texans, but they're not playing each other. They're just both playing the worst teams in their division, and so I do think they'll both win, and that means the Jaguars take the division. And the AFC is going to be, a lot more exciting in the playoffs than I think we thought it was halfway through this year. I think there's a lot of good teams in here, and especially if the Ravens take the division, um, I mean, that'll be, it's either Patriots Bills or Patriots Chargers, Jaguars Bills or Jaguars Chargers, and then like Texans Ravens. Like that's going to be a really fun wild card weekend for the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the playoffs, and those are all the situations that are still up in the air that matter for teams and how we think they're going to go. Let's end our episode this week with a quick trip to Fan Corner. I'm going to reverse the typical order here because there's one team that has maybe more to talk about. Um, I mean, lots has happened for all of our teams, but we've talked about a couple of our teams a little bit already so far. So let's start with Seattle, and then we'll go to Denver, and then end with the Rams. Seahawks, we just talked about them. They're going to play for the number one seed on Saturday night. That's awesome. I think that it's been a crazy couple weeks, starting with the win against the Rams, and then the win against the Panthers. But it's an exciting spot to be in going into the last week of the regular season. If it was me choosing, obviously I'd rather have it all wrapped up, honestly, one seed or not. But if we're got to go to battle with the Niners, then let's do it. It's going to be when I saw this game on the schedule in week 18 at the beginning of the season, I was like, that's going to matter, I feel like, for something. Like it might matter for something small, but I think it's going to matter for something, and it sure does. So, just the biggest thing is just in the last couple weeks, it's just been confirmed that after a few years of middling football, really since the Russ trade, they haven't been any legitimate contender. They made playoffs once in that run, but there wasn't a team that anyone thought could go anywhere. The Seahawks have returned to legitimate contention. 13-3 ties the best record in franchise history. Shout out to Mike McDonald for real. He's been amazing in his second year. And so we'll see how this formula that they've been playing with the second half of the year, which is play great defense until the offense starts clicking. We'll see how that works in the playoffs. I don't know. Like sometimes it can work, sometimes it can just flop. So we'll see how that operates. But this is a Super Bowl caliber defense, no question. Watching them play, all season long, but especially the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm very much on board with thinking that this defense can carry this team to a Super Bowl appearance, and if they have to, it's very possible for them to do that. So, cool place to be, and we'll go to Denver now for the Broncos and what's going on in Broncos land.
So 2 weeks since we last talked, their long winning streak was snapped by the Jaguars. And while obviously I'd rather win than lose any game, I can kind of take a little bit of solace in getting beat because it just felt like a streak that was on the verge of any given week just kind of blowing up. And I'm glad it happened before the playoffs. Now, obviously, we don't know what will happen in the playoffs, but I don't mind getting a loss. You know, reminding us what it feels like to get beat and to really get beat decidedly in that game. Made too many mistakes and all that. I think it was a good wake up call to show like, okay, these are the teams you're going to play in the playoffs. This, you got to be this good to beat them. And we weren't. But I still have confidence that we can be because I just saw some uncharacteristic mistakes in that game that I think could be improved upon. And it was a team, the Jaguars have been slowly but surely just being really, really good. A team that took the Commanders script to beating us and was actually able to do it and successfully defeat us. I think, yeah, like I said, it's a wake up call. But that being said, come back Christmas Day, beat the Chiefs in a game that was a lot closer than it should have been. 13-3, possibly 14-3, we'll see, but that is that's nothing to scoff at. No matter how close the games are, winning all those games is a good thing. So I already talked about the game this weekend against the Chargers that they're resting Herbert, they're resting probably more guys than that. Should be a nice way to end the regular season and then hopefully give us that bye week and home field throughout. And I really think anyone has to come to Denver. It's not going to be an easy game for them. So we'll see how it all goes. Like I said earlier, I'm really excited to see how particularly the AFC playoffs shake out because there's some new faces in there, and there's not a real consensus on who the best team is. So I'm looking forward to the gauntlet without Mahomes, and I'm liking that we have a chance to be the team that everyone else has to go through.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Like, being in this situation in the AFC in particular, you just feel like you can take on anybody for sure in this situation. All right, let's finish out Fan Corner with the Rams. Very eventful couple weeks for the Rams as well. You're muted,
Buddy.
Ugh. I'll make one quick comment on the Broncos though, is you guys actually have a legitimate home field advantage too. It's not just like, oh, our fans are loud. Like you guys have a legitimately conditioning. Like, people go to Mile High and get gassed. And I think that's the Broncos and Mile High will never be a stadium I'm upset about playoffs going through. I think it's cool that there's an actual like physical elemental like thing happening, and it's not just like we built a stadium that reverberates the sound of our fans back at the field. It's like, no, dude, the air's thin, we're in the clouds, and it sucks to run and breathe. But enough of that. Good for the Broncos. Hope they win. Rams, it's been a tough 2 weeks. We've talked about this, it feels like a few times already, but we have the heartbreaker to Seattle, and we have the heartbreaker to the Falcons. Both games felt like games that the Rams, not necessarily like lost, but like they had all the opportunities they needed to win. And I'm not going to be a guy who goes after the refs. I'm not going to be a guy who talks about, the calls that weren't made or were made and shouldn't have been. It's a lost point. You never want to leave the game up to those little flip of the coin situations. When you win, you want to just win. And the Rams didn't do that. And the Rams, going into that Seattle game, had all the momentum in the world. We were the 1 seed. We had the path to control our own destiny. All we had to do was beat Seattle, and I believe we would have clinched the 1 seed. Um, and so, no, we would have still had to beat one of these last two games. But either way, we controlled our own destiny. And so it's been a tough couple weeks. At the end of the day, however, there's been the majority of Super Bowl winners aren't 1 seeds. The majority of Super Bowl winners typically have a different path they take. And that week of rest, I'll jump on our good buddy Elijah. You'll hear us reference him a lot. I'll jump on his boat right now. Uh, it's probably for the worst getting that bye week. The rust that you get because you don't practice once during those 2 weeks. And as professionals, obviously you don't prepare for the game upcoming. It's really tough on the mental, on the physical, and we like being a gritty team. McVay's already said we're playing all starters against the Cardinals, because he was like, no, we need to be better. We need to keep getting these reps in, and this is our last chance to get it right before the playoffs. And frankly, I agree with him. Screw all the nonsense of like, well, you guys have already clinched, and like, what's the big deal? Like, are you really gonna risk Matthew Stafford or Puka or one of these guys? And it's like, yep, sure are, because right now we aren't playing well, and we need to get that right, and we need to figure that out. And football is a risk every time you step on that field, man. The players are willing to make the risk. The fans should be willing to make the risk. Like, you play to win, and you play to be better, and you play to get better. And that's all I really have to say about the Rams. I mean, big silver lining. We fired our special teams coordinator last week, after that Seahawks game, after Seattle's special teams cooked us up a bit. Um, and lo and behold, what happens? We get our first field goal block and return for a touchdown it was like 640 something games. Uh, my favorite part was the broadcast, Joe Buck asking Troy, like, where were you that many games ago? And he was playing at UCLA the last time the Rams blocked a field goal for a touchdown. And so the first game of our new special teams coordinator, and all of a sudden our special teams is good. Crazy that Rams fans have been asking for that. Um, yeah, I mean, hopefully that means if we can get all three phases working, we can go in with some momentum. And people have said this whole season, the Rams are the most complete team. We're the deepest team. But none of it matters starting next week, man. You get your starters right this week. You get your guys in the right headspace. You get them physically in. And next week, every team is 0-0. It does not matter. It's sudden death, right? Like, at the end of the day, we clinch playoffs. And I always say, that's what you play for, man. You just want a chance. I would have rather been the first seed. I would have rather been the fifth seed. I will take the sixth seed. Um, and we'll play whoever we have to play. And I don't care if it's the Bears. I don't care if it's the Eagles. I don't care if it's Tampa Bay or the Panthers. Bring them all. Give us any of them, and let's go to work. I mean, I trust Stafford in the clutch more than any quarterback in all of football right now. I will take Stafford in a 2-minute drive against anybody. So, yep.
Yeah, 100%. That's the attitude you have to have going into playoffs, and I think the Rams have plenty of reason to have an attitude
Your
like that.
thing clipped again. Your audio's not working. This was your fear. Everyone in the comments laugh at Dallas.
Hey, Dallas, I just want you to know I can hear you perfectly fine. So I think it's a Matt problem.
Oh, can you still hear me?
I could hear
I can
Drew,
hear
but I
you.
couldn't hear Dallas.
Oh, well. Well, anyway, before it does become a problem, let's go ahead and wrap up here. that'll do it for this week's episode of Dingers and Stingers, our NFL episode for this week. If you missed our baseball episode, go back and check that out. We talked a lot of great stuff that we missed over the course of a couple of weeks of not recording. Some WBC stuff, some free agency and trade stuff that happened while we were gone. So check that out. But more than anything, subscribe to us here on YouTube. Like this video, share it around. Let us know in the comments how you think these high stakes situations are going to turn out. If you prefer to listen, then watch. We are available to listen to on Spotify, so find us there. We are also on Instagram and TikTok as well. So follow us there, share us there. Until we know where our teams are seated in the playoffs, take care, and we'll talk to you then. Goodbye.